Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Deborah Exner, and I will be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Joining me is Ms. Paula Thomas with the Clean Elections Commission. Welcome, Paula. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform act measure that was initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Acts and rules. To qualify for funding, participating candidates must illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. The candidates agree to adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups. They also agree to participate in these debates. As we move into the debate, we encourage audience questions. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the card and then hold it up. One of our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. We screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplication, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. If you need another card, just raise your hand. There's an independent timer who will see that the candidate has time to answer the questions and will tell her when her time is up. Our format this evening will be opening statements for 3 minutes, a quick lightning round, 2 minutes to answer questions, and then closing statements for 3 minutes. We ask that you remain polite to the candidate and give him or her a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with what's being said. That means no applause, outbursts, or cheers, except now as we introduce the candidate. This debate will be a 30-minute question and answer session with the candidate, and our candidate this evening is Ms. Angela Katara, State Senator for District 19 on the Democratic Party. So, Ms. Katara, would you start with opening remarks, please?
Sure. Let me start off by thanking the Clean Elections Commission and for all of you for coming tonight. My name is Angela Katara, and I'm running for the Arizona Legislature because I simply I cannot sit by and watch our public education system, a system that helped generations of my family with the tools we needed for success, fail an entire generation of children and generations in the future. I'm running as a clean elections candidate because I want to make sure that your voice is heard. I think the special interests have enough voices speaking for them down there. I want to make sure I'm speaking for the community. I'm a graduate of the Leadership West training, class 14. I've been a member of the Avondale Planning Commission for 6 years. I worked on the Avondale 30-year plan on what we're going to be doing in our community for the next 30 years. I've also worked on on at least a dozen override and bond campaigns in the West Valley, raising money for our schools and getting to know the parents and the students and the teachers out in our districts. Actually, I was very, very proud. In 2012, I got to be part of the Tolleson Union High School override campaign, and we were able to restore $10 million to the school that it was losing because it was losing its override. Through these experiences, I've been able to establish relationships with the people in our community. I've been listening to them at the door, working with them in committees, and that way I know that when I go down to the legislature and having spoken with our community, I know I'll be able to speak for them when I get down to the legislature. In addition to improving public education, what I want to work on is bringing more and better jobs to the West Valley. People are tired of commuting to the East Valley for jobs. In addition, I think we need to increase the minimum wage. I think that anybody who works 40 hours a week should be able to feed, clothe, and decently house their families. We also need to make sure that as we revise our tax code, which it desperately needs to be revised because it's very out of date, that we focus on tax fairness. We need an economy that works for everybody, not just a wealthy few. Finally, I know that women are tired of the government that thinks it has a right to dictate their health care choices. I firmly believe that all reproductive health care decisions should be private, between a woman, her doctor, her family, and her faith, not her employers. I'm asking for your vote this year so I can put my skills and experience to work for you and for our community down at the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. So in an attempt to lighten the mood for tonight's debate, we are going to do a quick lightning round called This or That.
Okay.
All right? So please answer with just one word. Droid, iPhone, or Windows?
iPhone, Android.
Okay. CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
MSNBC mostly.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook, sort of.
Okay. Mac or PC?
Mac and Linux.
Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
All three. Sorry, I grew up in Flagstaff. I taught at U of A, was a student there, and I've taught at ASU, so I love them all.
Okay, all right. Now we'll begin the actual questions.
Okay.
So what will be your top priority if elected?
Well, my top priority will be working on the public education system, mostly to restore the funding that has been just decimated our schools. But with the, before the cuts came, we were very low in per pupil funding, and we had some of the worst cuts. We're now down 48th, 49th. When I graduated high school, and in the years between then and about 1995, we were always in the middle. So this is something that Arizona can do. We just have to have the political will to do it. And it'll be targeted. We need to target having smaller classroom sizes. We need to target teacher retention. There was an article in the Republic just the other week that was talking about how we've got teachers who are retiring and brand new teachers and a dearth in the middle because everybody leaves after a few years. That's because they don't have they're not given the professional respect that they deserve. The other things, that's my number one priority.
Okay, thank you. What role does the state have when it comes to immigration and protection of the border?
Unfortunately, we have very little role. This is a federal problem. This is what the courts have said over and over again, is that immigration is under the purview of the federal government. I think what we have a responsibility to do is to show compassion, to show understanding, and also to work with employers to make sure that we have, that's why I liked the E-Verify that went through, to make sure that we are employing people who are here have documents to be here. But mostly, I think that the immigration problems that we face, we have to get the Congress to resolve, because it's a problem that only they can fix.
Thank you. Arizona's unemployment rate has remained above 7% this year and has been slow to recover from the Great Recession. What do you propose to improve the job climate in our state?
Well, we have to understand that part of that is simply the way it goes in Arizona. People don't come to Arizona to look for jobs and work here and create new jobs until they've recovered in their old area. So we typically lag when that comes back. But I think the ways that we can do that are to ensure that we have an environment that is receptive to new companies. If you've ever heard of what's called the 3 Ts, remember we used to have the 5 Cs when we were growing up here in Arizona? Well, now we have the 3 Ts: talent, technology, and tolerance. And the thing is that you need talented people, but they won't come unless they feel welcomed here, which is why we have to work on our tolerance. And then that will help us bring in technological jobs. So one of the things that I think we need to do is I think we need to stop with the crazy bills that keep people away from our state and focus on welcoming people of talent and working with our technology companies to provide them the infrastructure that they need to build more jobs.
Thank you. As a legislator, what would be your first priority in working toward a balanced budget?
I think the first thing we need to do is people have various estimates, between 150 and 200 tax loopholes that have been implemented in the last 15 years, some of which are coming up for renewal that we have to look at to find out if they're doing the same thing. Estimates are they take between $3 billion and $10 billion out of our economy. So that's places that we're spending money that we're really not necessarily tracking as well as we could. One of the things I think we need to look at first is which tax loopholes do we have that are only benefiting very few, remove those, and then see where we are.
Thank you. Should guns be allowed in public buildings?
No. I've taught at universities, I've been in libraries. I think the best example of this is probably what happened in Dallas a few weeks ago when people took guns into Chipotle. People are very uncomfortable, they feel threatened, they feel intimidated, and that's in a store. We don't need that in our public schools, we don't need that in our libraries, we don't need that in our public buildings, and we certainly don't need it on campuses. If you've ever been on a campus, you know that emotions run high. We don't need to add that to guns to that mix.
Thank you. Since the Affordable Care Act is now the law, should Arizona establish a marketplace health exchange or continue to let residents purchase health care through the federal exchange?
I would like to see Arizona establish its own exchange. I think the data is starting to come in from out of state, from other states that have done this, and in the states where they've done it themselves, they tend to have better plans, less costs. Some of them do, not all of them, so that's why I think we need to study it. I think there could be a benefit to doing that could be Arizona specific. So I would like to see that happen because I think it could improve the quality for the people in our state and hopefully reduce the costs.
Thank you.
Oh,
What's
one more thing, though, I do want to say about the Affordable Care Act. Also, in the Arizona Republic the other day, there was a great story about how, because of the Affordable Care Act now and because of this expansion, the lack of payments or the defaults at hospitals has gone down by 1/3 just this year alone. So I think we're finding that it's actually working. The hospitals are now decreasing their costs, which will be passed along to us in a positive way finally instead of in a negative way.
Thank you. What is the role of state government when it comes to education, and how would you address a school that's underperforming?
I think our role as the role of the legislature is to provide for the schools as is stated in the Constitution. How do we help underperforming schools? I think it depends on the underperforming school because no school exists in a vacuum. Each school exists within a community. And often the problems that are plaguing the school are not just isolated to the school. They begin in the community. So I think it has to be something that we look at in a larger view rather than a smaller view. We need to make sure that the school has the resources it needs and to help the entire community make that school function better. Schools work well when you have teachers and administrators and parents and communities that are involved in supporting them. And it also, you have to know what's going on in that community. If you've got part of problems you can have with performing schools is a lot of students coming and going. So I think what we need to do is have a way to evaluate what is needed, not just in the school, but to support that school outside the school and make sure we provide that.
Thank you. If elected, what committees would you like to serve on and why?
Well, obviously, I've talked about education enough. I would be highly interested in that. But another one, but I think everybody's interested in that one. So another one I would be interested in, though, for our community is the Transportation Committee. Arizona is going to be moving, I think, within the next 10 years to having commuter rail. They're talking about starting it between Phoenix and Tucson. But I want to make sure one of the first lines comes out here along Buckeye Road, along that rail line, that existing rail line. And the reason is because that can bring tremendous growth opportunities to our communities. It'll make it easier for people to get around the city, to go to jobs, but it'll also be easier for people to come here for jobs. If you've seen any of the development downtown that's gone on around the light rail downtown, that has been a wonderful catalyst for development in the downtown area. And I think that a commuter rail system out here would do exactly the same all the way from Phoenix all the way out to Buckeye and would make sure that we develop the types of communities we want, which are more walkable communities, and would also provide employers with a good reason to build out here.
Thank you. What do you think of Arizona's current image, and what, if anything, would you do to change it?
I think Arizona's current image has been seriously been tarnished. I do travel with my job outside not only the state but also the country, and sometimes people ask me, what's going on in Arizona? And I have to explain to them. And I think the way we do this was shown to us in the last, some of the positive things we can do are to work with the business community to make sure some of the crazy bills that get us on the late night show, or the late show with Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert, don't get passed. We need to quit getting in the news for negative reasons. I would love to have us get in the news because we have done such a wonderful job increasing our education rate. Wouldn't you love it if the headline news was Arizona has the highest graduation rate in the nation, rather than Arizona passes another crazy bill that we have to work to kill. So I think that's one of the best ways we can do it. And until we improve that image, it's very difficult because we do want people to bring their conventions here. We want people to bring their companies here. We want people to move here for a job. I have had an experience where I was talking with somebody, probably going to get a Nobel Prize, And the U of A was trying to recruit him. He was from India, and he said, I don't want to go to Arizona because I don't want my children to be discriminated against. We have to end that image outside of Arizona, and we do that by making positive steps.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the current pension system for state of Arizona workers?
I'd have to think about that. I don't know that much about the details because it's not my pension system, and as you all know, we mostly know our pension systems really well when they're ours. My father was a professor at NAU, so I know he's had a very healthy pension system. I think we need to make sure that we can fund it. We need to make sure that it adequately rewards the people who have been loyal to our state for their careers and allows them to have a safe and comfortable retirement. I also think we need to make sure that practices such as double dipping are ended, because that degrades the image of it, but also it hurts the people who really are not doing that and who really just want to have a comfortable retirement.
Thank you. What is an issue or position where you stand in disagreement with your own party?
Oh, that's easy. I believe in nuclear power. I'm a nuclear engineer. That's actually where my husband was at when I was out working at Palo Verde Nuclear Generating Station. I have believed in nuclear energy from the beginning. The waste issues that people usually talk about, I actually worked on that when I was at Palo Verde, and I know that they are technically solvable. They're politically dangerous, but technically they're not unsolvable. And I also know that they reduce carbon emissions. But the other reason why I strongly support nuclear power is because it has a very inexpensive rate. Right now, solar power, as much as I love solar power, it is 3 times as expensive to produce as nuclear. And in my community, I want to make sure that everybody who lives in my community, all the families, have access to affordable air conditioning in the summertime. In Arizona, electricity is not an option. Okay? We all need it, and I think that the nuclear power plant and expanding nuclear energy is one way to make sure that we have a reliable, inexpensive, non-carbon-based energy source into the foreseeable future.
Thank you. What is your position on the DREAM Act?
I am for the DREAM Act. I know from my family history what a difference college makes, what a difference, and what a difference serving in the military makes. My grandfather did not get past the 8th grade, but he was able to serve in the Army Corps of Engineers for his entire life as a civil servant. He was able to provide for his family and put his son through college. My father, he was the first, and my mother were both the first people in their family to be able to go to college. It changed my entire life. It changed my sister's life. It changed the life of everybody around us. So I think that the DREAM Act, which enables kids to go to college who have been here, or enables them to become citizens by enrolling in the military, is a great way to take the best and brightest that we have and get them legally here, productive, part of society, become a productive part of society, paying their taxes, and being exactly what we want kids to be, which is responsible members of our community.
Thank you. What is your position on repealing Arizona's gay marriage ban?
I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. I have a feeling the courts are going to do that for us. Right now, there's so many cases that are being adjudicated right now in the courts from Arizona, from other states that have similar bans, that I don't think that's a decision that the voters are going to have to make. I have a feeling that the writing is on the wall, the courts are going to make it for us, and it will be repealed.
Thank you. What is your solution to child protective services?
Boy, if I had that, if I had a full solution to child protective services, wouldn't I be brilliant? I think what they've done is a good job. I really like the fact that what they did in the special session was to pull it out of the DES, make it more prominent, give it its own department, so therefore you can have higher, and also fund it better. I think those are some starts. I think the big mistake we would make right now is by thinking that we've solved it, that the problem's over and now we can turn away and go to something else. This is a problem that's going to take many years to solve. It's going to take oversight, revisiting it, and it's going to take listening to both people who are in the system, caseworkers, everybody, to make sure that we are going down the right direction of protecting our kids. And I think we need to get the community more involved as well. I know that there's a great need out there for foster parents and for adoptive parents, and I hope that I can do that, and I hope that other people can do that as well.
Thank you. What is the role of state government when it comes to higher education?
State government and higher education, you know, I sat there when Janet Napolitano gave her last State of the State, and one of the things that she said was she wanted to make college free for everybody in Arizona, and she said like by 2020. And I sat there and applauded, but I know she was leaving, and I was really worried about what was going to happen. Our state constitution says college should be as close to free as possible. It is nowhere near that right now. We have got to be funding that. Colleges and universities are not only places of learning, they're places of research, they're places of development. And when you have an active college system, you end up getting great innovation. Two classic examples of that are the San Francisco Bay Area and Austin, Texas, both places where I went to college. In the San Francisco Bay Area, it spawned Silicon Valley. Out in Austin, it sort of spawned the Texas version of Silicon Valley and a great number of industries. And the thing about it is that during the recession, those places suffered a lot less than everybody else because they had a more robust basis. So we need to bring down tuition rates, we need to increase scholarship rates, and we need to make sure that every kid who wants to and has the ability to gets their college degree.
Thank you, Ms. Katara. Colorado and Washington have legalized recreational marijuana recently. Should Arizona do this?
That's a really good question that I don't have an answer for. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still trying to figure out, trying to see what the research says. So far, fortunately, Colorado and Washington are doing the experimentation for us, so we will get to see from their results whether it's something that we want to do or should do. I know there's been a huge tax revenue from it in Colorado and no accompanying increase in crime. We have to see what happens in Washington. I know they've also had problems. I think there are, obviously for medical reasons, there are reasons we want to legalize it medically, especially for research and for understanding how the chemicals in that can actually help children and other people, and older people. But I think it's something we're gonna have to wait and see. I don't think Arizona's ready for it yet, and I think personally, I wanna see what happens in Colorado and Washington first. I wanna give them a good 3-4 years to see what happens before we make the move in Arizona.
Thank you. What is the most serious challenge facing Arizona?
I think the most serious challenge facing Arizona is getting a sustainable budget. We are about to have another budget crisis. Back in 2010, 2011, the state legislature passed a $350 million tax break for corporations that goes into effect next year after Jan Brewer-Light leaves. That's going to zap some of our economic growth. We still have serious structural deficiencies. We still have one of the highest state tax revenues the highest sales tax rate of any of the states. We still have one of the lowest property rates, and we still have a difficulty in maintaining a steady stream of revenue. We need to make sure that our tax basis is less volatile. And the way you do that is by pulling away from sales tax into other more sustainable types of taxes. So I think that's what our budget is going to have the biggest problem with. Because as soon as you start getting to budget crises and crunches, then you have to start making decisions. And because education is one of the largest portions of the budget, it tends to get cut most frequently. We need to get out of that cycle. We need to get back to a cycle that we were in back before 1995, where our schools were supported, our people were supported, and we were economically pretty stable.
Thank you. What was your opinion of Governor Brewer's decision last year to expand Medicare in Arizona?
I think it was the good decision. I think it was the right decision to make. We have 190,000 people who now have insurance. And also, that decision, what she was doing was upholding the voters who had already said years before that that's what we wanted, was 133% of, if you're at 133% of the poverty level, we wanted you to be able to get Medicaid. The legislature withdrew that during the recession, and basically she put back what the voters had already said that they wanted. As I said, the hospitals are already seeing the benefit of that with a third reduction in unpaid bills. And in states where they're not, and we've also seen a great decrease in the number of uninsured in our state. States that didn't implement that have not seen those reductions. And as we know, once you get more people on insurance, then you have less distributed costs to everybody else. So I think it was a good decision, and I'm glad that she did it.
Thank you. In 2013, Arizona experienced a terrible tragedy when 19 firefighters were killed in the Yarnell Hill fire. What role do you see for the state in helping the prevention of catastrophic forest fires?
Actually, I think we had part of the answer this year when we had the small fire that was up between the Rodeo Chetasky fires up near Payson already. And what they found was that it went into an area where they had done the thinning, and guess what? It settled down. Thinning of our forests is the way to go. It basically, once they got to the area where they had thinned, then they had the more productive, healthy fire like it used to be, rather than these raging infernos that get too hot and just become so dangerous so fast. So I think what we've seen is that thinning is the answer. Now, we have to do part of that because that's part of our responsibility, but we also need help from the federal government because that's part of what our federal taxes are for. So I think it has to be in cooperation with the federal government. I think we need to continue thinning our forests. I think we also have to be careful because with warmer temperatures, our forests are much less healthy than when I grew up in Flagstaff. And I was up there, I got to spend some time up there last year and really noticed the difference between the forests when I was a kid and the forests now. So we have to continue to have good forest management, but that includes thinning, working with the federal government, and making sure that we have the resources to do that.
Thank you. Name a recent law passed in Arizona by the legislature that you oppose.
Well, that would probably be pretty easy if I said 1062, SB 1062. I think most Arizonans disapproved of that law. And I was down at the Capitol and asking, with everybody else marching to make sure that Governor Brewer vetoed that law, because I don't think we want to have discrimination encoded in law in Arizona. I think that was a very bad bill. I think it should have died before it got to the Senate. And I think that the legislators need to make sure that they understand the unintended consequences of their bills and what they're doing as much as what they are intending to do. And that takes a level of looking at the bill and seeing what it says, but also looking at how else it could be applied. And we want to make sure that we pass laws that do what we want them to do and don't have the unintended consequences. I think that one would have had unintended consequences. And once again, I think it hurt us very much nationwide by looking at like a state that wants to discriminate. And I don't think that's not the Arizona I grew up in, and I don't think that's what Arizonans want.
Thank you. Ms. Katara, will you give your closing remarks, please?
Oh, sure. Okay. See, if I answer these at less than 2 minutes, you get to get out of here. Okay. Basically, when I graduated from Flagstaff High School in 1981, Arizona ranked around the middle of the country in per pupil funding, classroom sizes, classroom achievement, test scores. And so the thing is, I know we can do that again. My Arizona public education provided me with the foundation that I needed to go off to the University of Texas and get a BS in liberal arts, a BA in liberal arts, and a BS in nuclear engineering. My foundation was so solid that after I came back here and worked at Palo Verde for a couple of years, which is where I met my husband, I was able to go back to school, and I was able to go to Stanford and get my PhD in applied physics. I was able to achieve my dreams with the foundation of my Arizona education. I was able to work at NASA centers, and I've been able to work on the Hubble Space Telescopes, wonderful projects. The reason I'm running is to make sure that kids today get the same opportunities that I did. I want them to be able to achieve their dreams. I want them to be able to say, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be an engineer, I want to build a train. Whatever their dream is, I want them to be able to achieve their dreams. And that is why I'm running, because I know we can do this in Arizona. We've done it before, we can do it again. We are at this position because of bad choices that we made, and we need to make better choices. And we need to put education first, college education first, and make sure that our kids have the pathways that we had so that they can be up here in 30 years saying that, helping us out to help the next generation. I'm asking for the opportunity to take the skills and the dedication and the hard work it has taken me to achieve my career goals and put them to work for you and for the people within our community. I'm confident that we share the same values. And I know that we have a common vision for what we want our communities to look like. I will fight for your values every day at the legislature. And so I want to thank you for your time, and I would ask you for your vote. And finalmente, quiero decir gracias a las personas que lo encontró en las puertas por su paciencia con mi español y por your ayuda en aprendiendo más, porque necesito mucha práctica y estoy y tengo gracias. Thank you.
We thank you very much for your participation in this forum. And we thank all of you for coming out and taking the time to inform yourselves about the candidates before you vote. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections by going, and the candidates that are running for office, by visiting the website, www.azcleanelections.gov. A video of this debate, as well as other debates, will be posted there within 72 hours of the scheduled debate. So you can review them again. And thank you all for coming tonight.
Was that? I only saw you a couple times.